like when I was young, I didn't realise it was wrong. I thought all fathers done it.
What age were you when you became pregnant?
I was 10 and a half, going on 11. So that was when I think then that people, would have noticed.
Do you know who impregnated you?
I don't, but my mother on the night that I gave birth, she was saying that it was my father.
Tell me about that night.
Well, I gave birth to my daughter, and in the house there was some members of the family there who I can't say.
That's okay.
But my mother and father were there, and my grandmother came to the house later on.
You weren't 11 years old yet?
I was 11
You were
then,
just 11 years old. You
yeah.
were giving birth to a child in your house.
Yeah.
Your parents were looking at you.
Yeah. I had no medical treatment up to that point. I had no doctor's appointments. It was a complete secret pregnancy in regards that I wasn't.
Had anyone on the street said that child looks like there's something odd going on, that probably people couldn't imagine that you'd be pregnant, but did anyone say something? Did anyone raise an eyebrow, let alone a voice?
Well, one of my teachers at school did sit me down, one of the nuns, and ask me, was I pregnant directly, because I was wearing a smock coat all the time. And I said no, of course, because I knew not to say yes. And again, like I speak about my school experience in living with evil, and I sort of explain why the climate of the way we were in school, that there wasn't an opportunity. They weren't the sort of teachers that you could go to and confide in.
When you gave birth to your baby in the house with your parents there, what happened when the baby came out? Screaming, I presume, obviously, like any baby comes out.
Would you mind if I don't discuss that, because it's a bit traumatic?
Okay, no, I don't mind in the slightest, but suffice to say, the baby was, I'm not quite sure what sort of language to use here, but the baby, well, we have to say that the baby was killed. Is that fair to say?
Yes, yeah.
By your mother?
Yeah.
Okay. And she did it in a way that probably is beyond mention, even though you talk about it. Can you tell us, when your baby is killed in front of you as an 11-year-old child, what did your mother do next, or say next, with the body?
Well, when she was stabbing my baby, she said to me that it was my fault, that I assumed that she was talking about my father, because she was saying, this is your fault, look what you've made me do. You wouldn't keep away from him. I told you to keep away from him, but you wouldn't listen to me. And so she made me feel that it was because of me that she had to do that for him. And after that happened, shortly after, she took me out of the house and we walked to Dunleary, and she dumped my daughter's body in a laneway in Dunleary.
Have you any idea what was going through your head at that point? I mean, when your mother walked away with you from the body of the baby, did you keep walking?
I didn't leave the area with her. I asked her if I could go back up to the lane, and I said, I was going back up to, well, she had said that it wasn't my daughter in the bag, that it was stolen goods, and that she was dumping them there so that they'd be found. But so I asked her, well, can I go back up and move them to a better place where they'd be found quicker?
Yes.
But of course I knew my daughter was in the bag. So I went back up to the lane, and my mother, when I came out of the lane, my mother had gone and left me there, so she was gone, so we didn't walk away together.
Yeah. You went home that night, I presume?
Yeah.
What did you go home to?
Well, I don't remember going home, and I don't remember the walk home.
Of course you
I
don't.
just remember waking up the next evening, and I was tied to my bed by nylon stockings so that I couldn't get up. And my mother came up I was screaming, and my mother came up into the room. And I don't know how long now, if this was a day or, for 38 hours, 48 hours after, but it wasn't much, it wasn't a lot of time after. And she came up to the room at my dinner, and she just said, come downstairs and have this, and shut up, you're screaming. It's been on the news, she's been found, so you can forget it now. And she told me to just come downstairs and behave normal as if it never happened.
Did the abuse stop or continue?
No, it continued before I was finished bleeding from having the baby. The abuse continued in my family home again.
Were you ever pregnant again? Excuse me.
Yeah, a couple of years later.
And what happened then?
Well, that baby was born, stillborn. And again, it was born in the house.
You were 13?
Yeah, going on 14. And that baby was buried in the back garden of the house, in the backyard, to conceal the pregnancy and the abuse again.
What I can't understand, Cynthia, is where did this stop? Why? How did no one say stop? How did no one shout or see it? I just...
I can't answer that question. I can in to a degree, because I mean I can't speak for the people. But I know that, like, at the inquest, which was brought about because I had approached my solicitor, Jerry Dunn, in the audience.
Yes.
And I had approached him to see, was there any action open to me?
Well, let's talk about that, because there was a Garda Patrol appeal for people who might have claimed the body of your little baby that night, and that went out. And then nearly, 22 years later, you decided enough is enough. You need to confront this horror.
Yeah.
What took you so long? And I mean that in the nicest possible way. Why 22 years? Why at all?
Well, the trauma. Because, I mean, when you've gone through something horrific like that, every day was just a battle, a struggle to survive, to get through. I lived in the house till I was 19. So I had to, look after my younger sister and brothers. I knew the abuse was continuing with them. I didn't want to leave them. They were having their own problems. It was just the trauma, and that when I was saying it to my mother and family, that they were saying I was mad, and it never happened. And if you ever tell, I threatened to tell a lot, and she used to say to me, if you tell, they'll say you're mad, you will get locked up.
And when you came back then, as I say, 22 years later, thereabouts, what was the upshot of that? Your admission, the inquest into the death of your child. I mean, what was your parents' reaction to the fact that things were moving on in legal terms? What were they contrite? Did they show any signs of guilt or anything like that? How did they react?
They were arrested. I went to, it became a murder investigation. They were arrested. I had to confront them in the police station. My father said that he didn't know me and had never seen me before. My mother was her usual evil, staring at me, trying to frighten me. She physically threatened me in the police station a few times, and she was her usual, I suppose she thought I was still a child. I wasn't a child anymore, but I was still afraid of her because she was still very powerful and evil. But that resulted in a long Garda investigation that has been to the DPP 7 times. And at one point, when that wasn't going anywhere, I approached Jerry Dunn and asked him if he could just look at the case and come up with another option.
Your parents couldn't be prosecuted?
No. No.
They're dead now?
Yes.
Are you glad or sad about that?
I'm neither, really. It doesn't affect me. It affects me in an emotional way that they died and they'd never paid.
Okay. And
they died laughing at me, and they died taunting me, and they died having orchestrated a sort of a media campaign against me, saying, that I was a liar and I was mad and I'd invented this story.
But I think there was a certain natural justice, if I may say so, as a result of the inquest. Yeah. And what did the inquest find, Cynthia? Well, that came about as a result. Jerry went to my barrister, Kieran Wood, and he came up with an opinion that to try to reopen this inquest, because it had been, when they found Nolene, the inquest had been opened in 1973 and had been adjourned for a couple of weeks, and nobody had ever gone back to it. And the murder inquiry was closed within 6 weeks of her body being found. So they advised me that the best way to go there was to try to open this inquest, to have Nolene identified as my daughter, and then we hoped there would be more police, that then we could provide them with the suspects, the murder scene, the fact that she was my daughter, so I did have her at 11, so I was sexually abused. And that resulted in the Minister for Justice saying that he would look at the Gardaí files to see what went wrong and why they had never paid. And that has just come to a conclusion now, in that it took a couple of years, like he commissioned Patrick Ageby, then it took him a while to look at the files. We got the report, we weren't happy in any way at all with it, so we put in our issues that we were really concerned about, and that all took time. And the upshot of it was then that you got that Nolene was...
Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead. Yes, we got the inquest, and then because of the inquest, the Minister for Justice had someone look at the files. Yes.
And how are you now?
Well, I don't know, because I'm angry, and I didn't want to have to write this book, and I wanted a court case, I wanted a murder trial, I wanted the people who abused me to go to prison. There's still up to 8 men who have sexually abused me, 6 of them in the paedophile ring in the Dublin area. They're still posing a risk to children. The Gardaí know who they are, they're still free, they've never been prosecuted. So although my mum and dad are dead,
There's others.
8 of my abusers are still alive.
If one child is saved the torture, that's probably something in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason you're probably telling the story. It's a very difficult story that you've told us this evening, and it was brave, and we greatly appreciate it. And we're going to put a number up for people now for the ISPCC. The Childline details are there. If any child or anyone at risk, or if anyone wants to report something, don't let silence be your friend.
Yes. If
Don't
you're
let people
silent, you're
hide.
protecting them.
Yes.
If you're quiet,
Don't be
they can
incessant.
only act in silence.
Yeah. So please take note of that number if you're in trouble. Ring it. There's people there to take your call. Do not be afraid. There's support out there. Cynthia, thank you for your time. May Godspeed and go well. I hope you're happy forever. Cynthia Owen, live down. That's Cynthia's book, by the way, Living with Evil, which is out now. Cynthia Owen joining us on the programme tonight.